everyone. Welcome. Happy Monday. I'm Julianne Meyer. I am the host of Own Your Wellness, and I'm excited to make it here today because all the fires in California plus the hurricane, my goodness, it's the most confusing weather ever. But I'm excited too because my guest today is actually in Denver, and he's been experiencing some heat as well. So we at least have that in common. So without further ado, let's bring him on. Craig T., welcome to the show.
Hey, Julie, thanks for having me on.
So glad to have you here. Real quick, I just want to say that, we spend 2/3 of our lives working. And I love that you ask about the health of someone's business because nobody seems to think about that kind of thing. And if you're going to spend most of your life doing it, shouldn't you ask these types of questions?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy. I made that revelation probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. And I was like, man, this is crazy that I'm literally working all this time so that I can have quality of life to be with my family, and yet I can't be with my family.
Exactly. So anyway, why don't we start off with you telling us a bit about yourself and your own wellness journey?
Absolutely. So I guess the right place to start is about 7 years ago, I was working a corporate job. I'm an IT professional by trade. I've been doing that for about 28 years. I was sitting in my cubicle one day on the tail end of an 80-hour, almost 90-hour work week. And I just realized that, this wasn't really living. And I got to a point emotionally and mentally, and I started to kind of get this negative vibe about myself. I was like, oh, I hate my job. I don't want to be here. This sucks, and I just really kind of went down this path. And what's crazy is it had a really direct effect on my physical health. I started to, eat because I wasn't happy. I was like, I don't know what you call that, but I was, like, oh, I'm so sad. Let's eat a cheeseburger. Like that totally works, right? So
emotional eating.
Yeah, emotional eating. That's what it is. I knew there was an name. Hold on one second. I'm gonna just check my plug here. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna sit in a cube, and I'm gonna be busy, and I gained a ton of weight. I went up over 400 pounds for the first time in my life, and I was like 43 years old, 42, 43 years old. And so, of course, all of that weight and everything started to take its toll on me. My joints started to hurt. I started getting these really chronic migraines. I just didn't feel right. Like I was like out of balance or something. And so after a lot of my wife would say, you spent a lot of time in Egypt because that's where denial is. And so I finally went to the doctor, and really nobody was super shocked, but my blood pressure was triple digits on both sides. I was like 193 over 176. My weight was 407. My LDLs were in the upper 200s. So I felt like garbage. Obviously. And the doctor was like, you're going to die. Like she didn't mince any words about it. She's like, look, you're 43 years old and you're living like you're 20 and you're not. And she's like, your birthday is in like 3 months. And she's like, you're not going to make it. She's like, I'm surprised you haven't had a stroke already. So at the same time, I had a newborn son in utero. He was like 4 or 5 months away from showing up. And I already had 4 daughters, and I got a wife, and I have all these reasons to live and to be responsible, right? Like we talk about like that quality of life. So it was a massive wake up for me from a wellness perspective. I knew that if I didn't make a serious change in my life, that I wasn't going to be around. So I started doing some things that were very different in my diet, and I started taking it seriously. In a very, relatively speaking, a very short time, in about 13 months, I had lost 161 pounds.
That's amazing.
So my weight loss journey, really is relevant here because it's what led me kind of into this space of wellness. I started, communing with other people that were having similar journeys, and I got involved with some businesses that were around health and wellness. And I started to get into that community, and I started to realize one thing as an entrepreneur, having set up so many businesses. I was like, wow, these people are all great at what they do as healers, but they're really not very good at running a business, or they just don't want to. And so that was really kind of how I got into, the space that I'm in now. And so that's been a 7-year journey, and I've kept my health in the crosshairs, so to speak. I'm not taking my focus off of it. I've maintained that weight loss. I'm working out now. I just turned 50, in April, and I'm working out 3 times a week. And I'm probably in the best shape I've ever been in, really. Well, maybe since I got out of the military, but it's the best shape I've been in. So.
No, I love that. I love that you've been able to make these changes, because honestly, a lot of people don't, even if they're told what you were told, they still don't make those changes. And it's absolutely bizarre to me. But, I'm just real quick for those of you who are watching, I am a living testimony of how helpful Craig is, because he's helped me with my business. So toot toot. I mean, that's part of the reason why I'm so excited he's on the show today, because just that idea of being able to streamline, my time and have strategic ways of being and all of that. So what I'm getting at here, Craig, besides talking you up, is that
it's good.
You're like, oh, it's okay. Is with business professionals, what are some things that you see that are lacking in general that could be easily fixed if they just ask for help?
It's a really good question. I think it's not just business professionals either. I think people in general, we have this natural tendency to procrastinate, right? We just we know that we have to do whatever the thing is, right? You're gonna get up, go work, bring the kids to school, go to the doctor, get checked out, go to the gym and work out, right? Whatever it is, we know we have to do those things. But I think when it comes to business professionals, the reason I really honed in on that so much is because when you are not active, when you're not doing the things that you need to do in your business, there's a direct relationship to either the finances, right? You're not growing and scaling your business and revenue, or like you mentioned, time is a big topic that I talk about with my clients. Almost every client that I work with initially, the first couple of sessions are almost always around time management. I've been, blessed or cursed, however you want to look at it, with the ability to never use the phrase, I don't have time. I think it's more, how are you utilizing your time? And so I think that's one of the big ones that I see with business owners, especially with solopreneurs, people that aren't running a bigger company. It's just them. It's a one man, one woman show. They don't know how to say no to things. And then as a result, their schedules get filled up. And so, that's a really important place to start as a business owner, because if you don't have that in place, if you don't have a methodology for how you're going to manage your time and directly your business, well, then your personal life gets out of whack too. And you start to have relationship issues with your partner, start to have stress and anxiety because you're not doing the things you're supposed to do over here. So yeah, I would say that's probably one of the biggest things I see right off the bat.
As you're sharing that, I was thinking how you do one thing is how you do everything. So of course it would bleed over, but so many people think it's separate, or like the whole idea of, most of us have worked for somebody else at one point. Don't bring your problems to work. Excuse me. I am not. I understand what they're saying, but at the same time, I'm not a robot. So, especially if you're an entrepreneur, there's no off switch really. So you really got to learn how to.
That's right. Yeah. And one of the things that I talk about a lot when I speak, and also with clients is being present, right? It's one thing to show up. I know that's kind of a trendy thing. We should show up, and that's totally true. And you have to do that. But I think that when you show up for something, you also have to be present. And I'll give you an example. Being an entrepreneur, like right now I'm sitting in my office in my studio doing this, but there are times where I work from home, literally out of my bedroom. Sometimes I have a little desk next to my bed, or down in the family room, I'll have the laptop set up, and my family has come to learn that when I'm working, that I'm working, and I'm 100% present in that, so that when I'm not working, I can be 100% present with them. And my kids they've learned to appreciate that. They know if I say to them, look, guys, Papa has to work, I've got a phone call. they disappear. They know that the longer it takes me to get that done, the longer it's going to take for me to re-engage them. But they also know, and this is really the important part, that when I'm playing with Legos on the floor with them, or dolls with my daughter, or whatever it is, and yeah, I play with dolls. I'm okay with that. I turned in the man card a long time ago. But they know that when I'm doing those activities with them, my wife, she knows that when I'm engaged with her and talking to her, or whatever we're doing, she knows I'm focused on that thing, that nothing else is going to be allowed in and distract me from what I'm doing with them. And that's really, in my mind, that's the definition of work-life balance. You know, corporate America talks about that, but they don't really have any idea what that means, because they're only really focused on making money. And if that means you have to work 100 hours a week to make a little extra money, they don't care about your work or your personal life. They want you to do your work, and that's all they care about at the end of the day. And I think that's one of the things that's really great about being an entrepreneur. You know, and people say it in kind of, you know, cliche kind of ways, you know, time freedom, make your own schedule. But those of us that are entrepreneurs, we also know that that's kind of a lot of BS. I mean, we work harder. I don't know about you, but I work harder as an entrepreneur than I ever did in corporate America. And not just in terms of time. You talked about the switch, you know, turning off my brain at night is probably the hardest thing to do when I lay down on the pillow. I'm like, okay, tomorrow I've got the show with Julie, and then I've got with this guy, and I'm running my schedule already in my head. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just got to shut that off, because I need to be present to sleep from a wellness. You know?
No, I like that, being present to sleep. That's it's true though. You know, I saw this meme the other day and I thought it was really funny. It was like, you know, all those things that you wish that or something, it was like saying something to the effect of, you know, don't worry, all those things that you wish you got done today, they'll be there for you tomorrow.
Franklin Covey teaches that, right? When you go through Franklin Covey, I don't know, I'm dating myself probably, but when they used to do the Franklin Covey system, that's what he used to say. He's like, make your list, and what you don't get done, you put at the top of your list for the next day. And while that makes logical sense, all that is kicking the can down the road. I would rather have a really good schedule, a plan for my day, and then if it kind of goes off track, because that sometimes happens, have the flexibility built in, because I'm good at time management, to go, you know what, I'm going to work an extra 30 minutes tonight or an hour, but then I know tomorrow that my morning is completely clear, that I'm not carrying over all that stuff from the previous day.
And mentally, you're not carrying it either. So it's not, you know, you're not thinking about it while you're sleeping and all of that. So I like that.
Yeah.
You know, the question that comes to mind, and this is one that I used to believe myself, was because we've been talking about scheduling, is a lot of people don't want to make a schedule because they, you know, especially if they're artistic or, you know, even in the health and wellness industry, they want to be free and have all this free time and all that. They don't really. What would you say to somebody who doesn't want a schedule?
Well, I mean, I guess the first thing you have to do is you have to define what a schedule is, right? I mean, a lot of people think of a schedule, you know, they grab their phone, they look in their calendar, right? They schedule calendar as kind of sounds, but that's not really the same thing. I think a schedule is really, it's a plan. It's more of it's an outline to how you intend, and this is an important word, how you intend your day to go day to day. But I think when someone says they want to be free, I think that the true freedom really lies in the ability to be flexible in your schedule, in your plan. But if you don't have one, then you're not setting yourself up for success to be free. You're actually allowing the world to happen to you, and you have to become in this reactive state, which causes anxiety and stress. And anybody who suffered with anxiety and stress and depression, they'll tell you that they have this, I'll use an example like hoarding disorder, right? You know, people walk into a room, it's not because they don't see the garbage in the room and realize, oh my gosh, my house is a wreck and I probably need a bulldozer to clean it out. They walk in the room and they go, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming to me. I don't know how to deal with this. There's too much stuff. Well, guess what? If you don't have a schedule or a plan for your day, that's how you're going to live every day of your life. You're going to feel like you're in this reactive, overwhelmed state with all the things that are happening to you instead of you happening to the things in your world. It's just a matter of perspective. But if you don't outline that plan, if you don't at least try to come up with a map or whatever you want to call it of how your day is going to go, you're going to find yourself just kind of floating around. And I don't know, there are people that are like that. I mean, there are people that can operate in that kind of a space. I don't think I don't think I could live like that. I mean, that would drive me crazy.
Yeah, me too. I was thinking too, it's kind of like how people, they don't put fun into their calendar,
Right.
but then their bucket list remains a list. They don't actually do those things because they don't plan it out. And it's, it's just, I want to do that someday. And it never, ever happens because
that's right. I literally just had a client. It's so funny that this comes up. He'll probably see this at some point too, so he'll know I'm talking about him. Just had a session with him this week, and I was looking at his calendar because we've been going through capacity planning and things so that he could scale his business. But the first thing was his schedule, how to get better at blocking out his schedule. And so for several months now, every time we get on the call, we look at that calendar. It's like the first thing we do for like 5 or 10 minutes. And I was looking at it this week, and at the end of the call, I said, hey, bring your calendar back up for a second. I said, something just kind of struck me. And he's like, sure. So he brings the calendar up on the screen. I'm like, hey man, this isn't very accurate. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, this is everything I've been doing. I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't have that component that you said was really important to you at the beginning of our time together, months ago, which was to be more time free so that you can spend time with your wife. They're a younger couple, no kids, right? And I'm like, I don't see anything on your calendar for date night. I don't see anywhere where you're taking your wife out to dinner or lunch or just a half a day away. And his response to me, and it threw me over, he was like, I don't know where I would fit that in. And I'm like, oh, no. I'm like, you're now a student of the time management system here. You need to figure out a way to block out that time. So I said, your homework for this week is I want to see a spot on your calendar where you took your wife to lunch or dinner or something and you didn't work the rest of the day. And he struggles with that stuff because he feels that internal pressure to grow his business, and he's kind of like, he could go workaholic really quick, and I don't want him to go there because I want him to have that balance.
Well, the other thing too, I think entrepreneurs forget, and I'm curious if you agree with me on this one, is that, by working, like grinding, like that term, grinding away on their business, sometimes they'll be successful in spite of that because, I don't know about you, but sometimes I get my most brilliant ideas when I'm in the shower. It's kind of like you're still working on your business, but not, it's more like there's apps on in the background that are running instead of like, right. Yeah. You know what I mean? Right. So I feel like if you could just relax your brain and walk away for a little while, you'll actually have better success. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think the way that I frame that and the way that I handle it as an entrepreneur is really, planning space, planning gaps, because you have to sit back as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, especially if you're trying to remain in this, kind of build and grow state all the time. It's super important that you have perspective. And the only way to really get perspective in the literal sense is to step back from something, right? If you're too close to it, right? I could be creepy and go really close to my camera, but like if you're too close to it, then you can't see all the things. But when you step back, you get more of a holistic picture. And I think I spend a lot of time, just sitting in a chair a lot of times without, tech on, which is hard for me because I'm a tech guy, and I'm super wired into things. So I'll shut everything off, and I'll block out 2 hours. And I'm not necessarily going to go for a walk or anything like that. That could work. But like for me, it's literally just sitting in a chair and going, okay. And letting things kind of hit me. I have a little notebook and kind of like the shower analogy, something just kind of passes through the tunnel I call my head. I write it down. I don't think about it. I don't try to do something with it. I just capture it. And then I put it back. So journaling in a way, and what's crazy is if you look at my desk, I'm looking at my desk, I've got 3 or 4 different little composition notebooks or flip books on it, and they all have different purposes, and so I'll write things down, and then I have one in my pocket, and I'll transfer things into the appropriate notebooks. I've got one for money, I've got one for the business, I've got one for personal stuff, I've got one for ideas, right? So all these things. And I don't know, maybe I'm a freak that I operate that way, but I
do that too, actually.
I think sitting down, that's what an entrepreneur does. I mean, if you think of all the great people, you could pick any entrepreneur you want. no shameless plugs for anybody because I'm not affiliated, but look at a Bill Gates, like how did that guy get to where he's at, right? You hear all the stories about he started in a garage, he surrounded himself with brilliant people. But at the end of the day, he was the one who sat there and said, you know what would be really cool? If we could write a computer program that would organize our lives and give us a visual interface. I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to write an operating system, right? Like, who does that? That had to be some kind of a weird idea. Elon Musk, all the things he thinks of. One of my heroes, Richard Branson, the Virgin Atlantic model from a branding perspective. Like, these are people that are in my head because I admire what they do. But if you look at what they do on a regular basis, it's all about them sitting down in their most intimate times and having an idea and capturing it, and then taking action on it. Right?
Yeah.
And they're not.
It's a two-parter.
And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they lock those two things together in the moment. They go, oh, it'd be really great if I could invent this. Okay, I'm going to go do it. And but you got to give yourself that space, to kind of process. So.
Well, that's a problem. I in the addiction world, they call it squirrel, know. Squirrel. Yeah, I mean, it'll still be there. You don't want to sit on it forever, but maybe it's not the appropriate time right in this exact moment.
Right.
It doesn't mean you have to do it right exactly then. I think that's a really good distinction, actually. So what does it look like to work with you? Because you've given us a little bit, little tiny nuggets of, what it looks like. But I'm just curious, what would it be?
Yeah, I always appreciate this question. I think the easiest way to answer it is, like I said before, most business owners struggle, I've found, in three areas. It's they either don't have a plan or they don't have a good plan, or they have a good plan that needs to be revisited and kind of adjusted, right? Because plans are only as good as the execution, and sometimes things change. So strategic planning is a big focus. Most of my clients, when they come to me, that's one of the first stops. Marketing, it's like an ugly word for people. We all know we have to do it. We all know that, social media is one way we could do it. We could do ads. Like, everybody knows the vehicles for doing marketing, but nobody ever really talks anymore about the marketing strategy aspect of it. How do we actually take the things, right? Because there's so much and it's overwhelming. I think, again, back to the hoarding example, right? It's overwhelming. Go market your business, Julie. I don't know where to start, And so, and then the final thing, I think, and it kind of couples to the marketing piece and the strategy piece, is technology. And as you know, we've worked together from a technology standpoint before. Those three things are really kind of where I niche in with my clients. I think that they are, or I know that they are the things that every business owner knows they have to do, doesn't want to do, or doesn't know how to do, right? It's some blend of that. So working with me is really very simple. I usually have people engage with me for a strategy session. I do a full 1 hour strategy session. Most people walk away from that session and go, I kind of know more now than I did when I talked to you. I could just kind of go do some things now. And they're kind of inspired to go take some action. And that's great. I have some people that have done that. They've just kind of never come back as a client, or they come back 4 or 5 months later, and they're like, hey, I did some of the stuff that we talked about. It's great. I want to do more. Right now, I want to really interact. So past the strategy session, I usually have people fill out an assessment form. It's pretty short. It just helps me capture some specific goals and actionable things that we can talk about when we start working together. So it's kind of a map. It's a roadmap, so that when we have that first session, it's really oriented towards your needs. And then after that, point, I usually say, hey, I think this might be the program for you. I have a few different options. Some of them are budgetary driven, because the business owners are in different places. So I have some opportunities to work with me that are shorter and less expensive. And then I have some programs for the businesses that really want to grow. And I pride myself a lot on capacity planning and scaling, and really focused on revenue growth. If we're in business, that's one of the main reasons we're in business, is to generate revenue, right? So people are afraid to talk about money. It's crazy. So I usually figure out what the program is, and then from there we'll do an agreement together and we get started. I meet with people. I have clients I meet with every week. I have clients I meet with every other week. I have clients I meet with once a month. I do executive coaching, so I work with C-level clients as well. And it's funny because the C-level clients you would think would be like super high end, like really, really complex business matters and issues. I'm more of a life coach to those people. Those guys are just like, I need a hug. Just like emotionally hug me as a coach because I've had a really hard week. And they deal with a lot of different things. So, and then on that same vein, I'll also go into corporations and do group coaching for like sales organizations. I'll talk about ways to create efficiencies. That's kind of my real main thread through the whole thing is creating efficiencies for business owners. How can you free up your time? How can you automate certain places in your business and still have that revenue flowing in? So that's what it looks like to work with me. I love working with my clients. They're every one of them is different. They all have different, issues and problems to solve, and but they're all amazing because we go through this process of really vetting out if it's a good fit, and that's really important for me. Is that I know there are a lot of coaches out there, and nothing against anybody who's a coach, but there's a lot of coaches who just take your credit card and your time and run with it, and I'm just not that way. It's really important for people to know that. My tagline here is business built on faith. I am a man of God, and that's just how I put myself out there. And so as such, I have to operate from a place of integrity. I need to be responsible with my finances, but I also need to be really focused on how I interact with people from a relationship standpoint too. And so if it's not a good fit, I'm just not going to work with you. And I'll tell you. Yeah.
Well, I want to throw in a little something too, because I think that this is important for the people that, are having issues with technology, and that's that overwhelming feeling. I just want to say that you, Craig, hold this space, this patience. There's this patience that you have that makes it okay to keep working and moving forward. And like, you can read the person you're talking to, like, are you still with me?
Yep.
So I just want to mention that because I know for me, that's always been a struggle is the technology thing. I shouldn't say I don't have the patience for it, but it was easier working with you because you held that space for me to relax. So
I appreciate that. And it's funny. my wife will concur to this when she sees this video. I actually struggle in the area of patience holistically in my life. But when it comes to technology, and it's just probably a confidence thing because of 28 years of being around technology in my corporate job, I just understand it. And more to the point, I understand people and how it affects them. And just for people that are watching, there's nothing to be afraid of with technology. It's really your best friend when it comes to business because it allows you to do things it allows you to duplicate yourself and scale yourself in areas that you just can't be present all the time, right back to being present. And so don't be afraid of technology. It is a complex web, and it's changing as we speak constantly. And so as a technology consultant, a coach, one of the things I have to do is I have to block out time to stay on the current trends, right? I can't get a client on the phone like we got into your system. I've never seen your system before, but being able to reverse engineer it, in a short period of time and then figure out ways to make it effective for your business. That's the gift, right? And that's where it's crazy because I have that patience with people there, but nowhere else in life. Completely anxious everywhere. So I appreciate the compliment.
That's funny. I love that. Well, on that note, it is time for us to go to commercial. So we're going to be back in just a minute. Okay, Craig?
All right. Sounds good.
For those of you who are watching us live, thank you for being here. We appreciate you. But as I mentioned, it's time for those commercials. So until, a couple minutes, we'll be right back. you someone who is struggling to move forward because you suffered a loss? Maybe you're even finding it difficult to complete the most basic tasks. Are you looking for a way to start enjoying life again without feeling guilty or the resistance to do so? Spiritual life coach Sarah Stockham saw a need for people who haven't learned how to grieve without putting their entire lives on pause. And so she created a program that solves this issue called Choosing Life Right Now. This program is simple and you can do it on your own. If you are ready to learn how to feel your grief while still being able to smile, to honor the sacredness of what took place as a loss, and yet still continue to live with joy, and if you'd like to take care of your whole being with grace and love, then I'd like to invite you to experience her new program called Choosing Life Right Now. Sarah is currently offering her program for the promotional price of $77, but it won't stay at this price for long. To learn more, check out her website. The address is on the screen.
When drug or alcohol addiction take over, things begin to disappear. Your friends, your family, and eventually, you. Recommended by Dr. Phil, New Method Wellness can help get your life back with individualized treatment plans for dual diagnosis clients. New Method Wellness provides the most highly credentialed treatment in a safe and welcome environment. Call New Method Wellness for your free consultation and ask about our national accreditations. Together, we can put the pieces back together.
Welcome back, everyone. If you're just joining us now, my name is Julianne Meyer. I am the host of Own Your Wellness, and today's special guest is Craig T. Let's bring him back.
Okay, that was cool.
So something I was thinking about, and you touched on, it's funny that you touched on it right before we went to break. You know, you say you're a man of faith, and this is what I think is so interesting. I want to break down some barriers here. I don't know where this idea came from. It's like, especially in the health and wellness industry, where you're supposed to give away your time and your knowledge and everything for free, where, you know, it's kind of like if you, you know, I don't understand why, like, it's almost evil to talk about money. It's like considered bad to, you know, want to make it. I don't understand like how that has, you know, how that got separated. What are your thoughts as a man of faith?
So, you know, it's funny, this topic comes up a lot. I guess I'll start off by saying when I first started this business, of course it was a brand and then it was a business, I had to really figure out how I was going to approach not just interacting with people, but how I was going to earn a living, right? If I was going to transition away from corporate America, the reality is that I need to make money. And so I went to scripture, and because that's what we're supposed to do as Christians. We're supposed to go to scripture for the answers, right? And, you know, there are passages like, I think it's First Timothy talks about money being the root of all evil. And, you know, there are all these references in the Bible. And I'm like, wow, I'm kind of screwed. Like, how do I do this if money's the root of all evil? But then as you read on, right, and you read in context, which is super important when it comes to reading the Bible, you know, God doesn't talk about making money being a bad thing. He says that when you make money, that you're to earn it, tithe a percentage of it, right, joyfully back to the church so that it can serve other people. Super important. That's the first thing. And then your abundance, your blessings that you receive, that's what you're supposed to be, you know, putting out there to other people. You're supposed to share so keeping the knowledge and the information that I have as a coach would actually be worse than making money. And I was like, okay, well, I'll wrestle with that thought for a minute. And I was like, but if I'm making money off of other people's issues, their challenges, their struggles, is there a moral issue with that? Well, no, because the Bible also tells us that we're to minister to one another, right? And so I kind of started to plot these things out on a whiteboard, and I was like, well, I'm supposed to do that. I'm supposed to minister. And God says it's okay for me to earn money. I can earn my wage. I can earn an honest day's wage, right? Put my hands to the plow.
Mm-hmm.
You reap what you sow, right? All these verses that even if you're not a Christian, you know what I'm talking about. Those are sayings that are from Scripture. And I started tying things together, going, it's okay. It's okay for me. In fact, I'm supposed to, right? Because the other part of that puzzle is your calling. We all have a purpose, right? I don't particularly want to get hung up in, what anybody who might be watching this believes, right? You believe what you believe. I just say you got to believe in something. I believe in Jesus Christ, but you do you, right? But the reality is that you are called to a purpose. We all know it because we're all in pursuit of it. We always say, I just want to know what the meaning of life is. I want to know what I'm supposed to do with my life. I want to know what I'm supposed to be when I grow up. Well, I'm still growing up, I think it's super important to focus on that piece. What are you called to do? I say a lot in some of my marketing, that you should live the life that you're called to live, right? Because when you do that, when you are aligned with that, right? Some people call it, your Zen, your chakra, your center, your whatever. I was a Buddhist for 7.5 years. I understand like all of those spaces. Whatever it is, right? When you feel balanced, when you feel in alignment, when you feel like you're I'll use an aerospace analogy. When you're in the glide path as an airplane, right? There's no resistance. You're at the tail end. Yeah, you're in the flow. Exactly. That's when you're actually living the life that you're called to live. So I think that those three elements are super important. Live the life that you're called to live. Share the knowledge that you have with other people, but don't be afraid to charge money for it, because you have to earn a living, and God wants you to earn a living. He wants you to live a life and live in a life abundantly. That's what it says in Scripture. Yep. So he doesn't say live in squalor. He doesn't say get a refrigerator box from behind Home Depot and take it. He says live abundantly, right?
Yeah.
And so there are some other things that you get into, but I think in general, that's my perspective on it. So if you're running a business and your struggle is financial, we need to look at your pricing model, and it's also tied to knowing your worth, yes. and the Bible's very clear about, as a Christian, I'm a child of God. I'm designed in the image of God. Okay, well, let's break that down for 10 seconds. If I'm designed in the image of God, and God is who God is, the Almighty, the Creator, the ruler and designer and orchestrator of everything, well, isn't that how I should be? Because I'm in the image of God. I'm not saying that I'm God. I'm just saying that I'm in pursuit of being like Him and all of the things that He does for me and for other people. And so I take that philosophy and I apply it to my coaches. And so I do have a faith element to my coaching, where it's appropriate. I don't like jam it down people's throat. I don't, but through conversations, it comes up and you kind of get a vibe of people. And when I realize that with my clients, I will, before a session, I will pray over that client. I will often bring Scripture to bear in our conversations during our sessions if they're believers and they're open to that, because it's relevant. We need to. I'm in the process of writing a book. Shameless plug. It's called. Working title is God is my co-founder, and so it's really. Like it's really I was going to do Doing Business God's Way, but that's already a title out there, so didn't want to step on toes. But God truly is the co-founder of my business. If I let Him direct the path of everything that I'm doing, and I'm really in tune with how I'm supposed to act with regards to finances and relationships and wellness, right? Like my physical fitness, my mental wellness. And of course, the underlying pin of all that is my faith. And that's why it's business built on faith. I think that it's super important for two reasons. One, for me personally as a business owner to run my business that way. And secondly, because I'm a Christian, because I'm a believer, my one thing that I'm supposed to do according to God's word is to spread the gospel to other people. And so I look at opportunities like this, my coaching sessions, if I go to a networking event, it's about making money and it's about growing my business. But first and foremost, it's about spreading the gospel. I've been in so many situations, Julie, where I'm thinking of having a strategy session. I wind up having a revival, a ministry session with people. And I'm just like, wow, I'm like, we weren't supposed to be talking about business at all. We were supposed to be talking about your addiction or the thing that you're going through or the thing that you've been through. And building that relationship is way more important to me than signing a contract and having a client come on board.
Something that I was thinking about too is, and I admire, is that, you're showing up as who you want to be for your, in the world, for not only your business, but just how you want to be. A lot of people think they have to, separate out and be this certain sort of mask, and then that's just one aspect. But it seems to me like there's a through line with you where how you are is how you are. And it's just how you spend your time might be a little bit different, say at 6 a.m. versus 6 p.m. So
well, by 6 a.m., I've already been up for an hour and a half. I've done my morning workout, done all the routine things I got to do.
I like it.
Yeah. And, by 6 a.m., my house is starting to wake up. So yeah, I tell people all the time, like, what you see is what you get. I don't. A long time ago, my mother. Sorry.
It's okay.
Every time I think about her, I get emotional. She's been gone for about 8 years. So
I'm so sorry.
This is what you get. She used to say to me all the time, and I won't curse because I'm a Christian, but she used to use explicit when she said it, but she said, don't give an F what other people think about you. If you're not happy with yourself, nobody else will ever be happy with you. And I've just carried that through my whole life. I have that I don't give an F mentality, I guess. So it's weird as a Christian to say it that way. I just don't care what other people think about me. I don't care what they think about what I'm doing, because back to living my life that I'm called to live, if I'm in that glide path and there's no resistance and it feels the way that it feels when I'm there, then it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm going to come into contact with the people that I'm supposed to come into contact with. I'm going to be doing the things for those other people that I'm supposed to be doing. And so I can go to bed at night. My wife will say to me, she's like, I have never seen anybody fall asleep, hard asleep, as fast as you do. It's mind-boggling to me. And I'm like, when you have a clear conscience about the way that your day went, when you worked hard, my mother used to tell me, she said, you want to sleep well, work hard during the day while you're awake.
Yeah, it's true.
And it was like, so I go to bed at night and I'm tired, physically, mentally, on all levels. And I know, because I spend time thinking about it before I close my eyes, was I a good person today? Did I treat somebody wrong? I've been known to send people text messages at 4 a.m. Hey, bro, it just hit me. I said that thing to you, and I can't go to sleep until I have acknowledged that with you, and I'm just asking you to forgive me. Right? It's that. Yeah. It's tied to that faith piece. It's, as a Christian, not being above reproach, right? Trying to walk it out. I tell people all the time when I speak, do what you say you're going to do. Follow ownership. The word. Yeah, you got to be accountable, and treat. And the Bible talks about this too. It's treat other people how you want to be treated. Love your neighbor. All of the rules are in there. And so if I'm going to be a business owner and sit in front of this and say that my business is built on faith, well, I have to walk that out every single day. Now, am I perfect at it? Absolutely not. Not even remotely close. But man, I'm trying. I'm trying for people to see that, because I think that's important.
Well, that's the thing too. If you were perfect at it, nobody would want to work with you, because you wouldn't be relatable.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I talk to people through addiction counseling sometimes, because we have to get through some of the life stuff, Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I did copious amounts of drugs. I was totally addicted. And the worst part was I wasn't chemically addicted to cocaine and muscle relaxers and the gallon of Jack Daniels I drank every day and the mushrooms I used to do. I was socially addicted. I did it because I was hanging around with the cool kids. I did it because I wanted to be in the clique, which is
Yeah.
actually worse, because if you've been socially addicted to anything, it's very hard to quit, because it means giving up your friends and your social circles. It's not about giving up the drug. The drug is easy to give up.
Yeah, that's the beginning. That's the easy part. It's interesting because people think, "Oh, I'm not." I'm like, "Okay, leave your phone at home for an entire day and don't have access to that, and see how comfortable you feel in your own skin."
That's right. Yeah, it's crazy what people they could think of addiction, they instantly go to drugs and alcohol,
Yeah.
right? Or sex. Those like the top three things. But I mean, yeah, technology is an addiction. I told you I recently got deleted off of Facebook, and I was successful off of it for 2 months. I'm back on it. I mean, is that an addiction? I don't know. Probably somewhere in the context of it, right?
Well, that's the thing too, is I mentioned, addiction earlier, and I worked in addiction recovery for, I think it was 6 years, maybe 7.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm telling you, these people that are coming off heroin, cocaine, all the
opioids,
meth, all of these things, the hardest part for them was to give up their phone for 30 days. They can put down the drugs, they can deal with the cravings, but the phone cravings.
It's crazy. We need to do more studies and research into that, because it's a problem. And it's funny that you bring that particular thing up too. Same client that I was telling you about before, he admitted to me on our last session, he said, he's like, my day got off track on Thursday last week. And I said, well, what did you do for that, 90 minutes? And he was like, I was scrolling.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, man, it's a killer, I'm like, and so what was the outcome of that after? He was like, I had to work until 7. What was the outcome of that? My wife was mad at me because I wasn't there for dinner, and I was like, so yeah, we gotta figure that matrix out. That's a whole other topic, but
yeah, no, it really is. But one last quick thing about that is, what if his goal is to spend more time with his wife? This is literally taking away the one thing that he wants to do. It's that's addiction.
and creating anxiety and stress, which is the one thing he wants to get rid of. So
exactly.
Yeah, it's funny. And back to my initial comment. We do it to ourselves. We know what we're supposed to do. Adversely, we know what we're not supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
And yet we still do it.
Yeah, it turns into, I've said this before, but it can be a compulsion. I mean, it's interesting. So I think that's where scheduling helps too, because if you have to be somewhere, you have to do something, it's a lot easier to show up than if you don't schedule it, because then it's like, I'll do it later.
Yep, it's crazy. And because we've now worked together, I am habitually early for everything. It goes back to probably a combination of my military experience, but really prior to that, even in high school, my band director, I played drums in the drum line, and he would say, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And it's this, and this is really an important nugget. And I think people have probably heard this before, but I'll say it again. And I'll use a corporate job as an example, because I think most people can relate to that. When you are hired to work from 8 in the morning until 5 at night with an hour for lunch, that's a typical, I don't know, it was never my typical work day, but in theory, that's a typical work day, right?
It's the theory, yeah.
What that means, and I'm trying to teach my kids this, that means that you have to be in your office, at your desk, hands on the keyboard, working at 8 a.m., not walking in the door, getting a coffee at 8 a.m., go to the bathroom, meander to your office, turn on the computer and wait for it to load up, mess around with whatever, and then by the time you start working, it's 8:40. That's not what you're getting paid for. And as entrepreneurs, the same kind of philosophy is in conflict all the time, because as entrepreneurs, we want to be free. We want to do what we want, right? Like we were talking about. Yeah. And while that's possible, you should plan your day to be that way. Hey, I'm gonna get up at 4:30. I'm gonna do all my morning routine things. At 6 a.m., I'm gonna do the family thing for a couple hours, get the kids off to school. I'm gonna come down to my office here at 8:30, and I'm gonna get ready for my 9 o'clock shoot with Julie on her awesome show. Yeah. I'm not gonna walk in my office door at 5 till 9 and try to figure out all the technology and turn on all the lights and do all the things, because then I've now put a compromise into your schedule, right? So we just need to be more aware, and frankly, more respectful of our time for other people, but for ourselves too.
Exactly.
I don't think people respect themselves enough, So
yeah. Well, speaking of time, we're just about done. So it goes by quick, doesn't it? Are there any last thoughts that you would love to share with the audience, or you can also reiterate something if you'd like as well?
I guess a final message is, I always say to people, every business needs a coach. So that's kind of my marketing line. But it's not just a marketing line, it's true. And so I would say to anybody who's watching this, in a shameless kind of a plug way, if your business isn't healthy in kind of some of the ways we've talked about, and it can be anything. It could be financial health. It could be your emotional health, your stress levels. Maybe you're struggling to figure out if you should hire people, right? Maybe you have control issues. You don't want to relinquish the reins. I know that personally, very recently, it's hard to do. I'm making those decisions in my own business every day. If you're in a situation where you just want to talk to somebody about what's going on in your company, I would love to do a strategy session with you. It's free. And I just want the opportunity to kind of get in the room with you or on a call with you and just figure out what you're doing and what you're passionate about, what your goals and your dreams are, right? Because that's the fuel. That's why we're entrepreneurs, right? It's not about money. It's not about helping other people, right? Everyone, that's such a cliche thing. Everyone says, I help other people. Well, how do you help other people, right?
Yeah.
It's not about those two things. It's really, and you got to hear this, and this will be my final word. Being an entrepreneur, running a business is about fulfilling your dreams. It's about living the life that you're called to live.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Craig, for being on the show today. It has been an absolute pleasure, and I know that we left them with some gems. So,
Thanks so much for having me. This has been fun. I hope to do it again sometime. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, no, definitely. We'd love to have you back for sure. Definitely. Well, everyone, that is all the time that we have. Craig, thank you again for being on the show, and we'll see you again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Julie. Take care, everybody.
And for those of you who are watching us live, hello again. And like I said, it's time to go. So we will see you on Thursday this week. And until then, enjoy the rest of your week, everyone.